Indoor training can be tough at the best of times, and all that hard work and effort generates a lot of body heat, which can be near impossible to stay cool. So that kind of got me thinking, just how much difference to your physical performance does having a fan make compared to not having one at all? Let's test this out. First up, a quick science lesson as to why we get so hot. When our body converts energy from our glycogen stores into movement in our muscles, a large proportion of that energy is converted into heat. To dissipate that heat, the body circulates more blood flow, transporting heat away from the muscles and to the skin's surface where it's much cooler. In addition to that, our body produces sweat. As that sweat evaporates, it helps remove even more heat. In fact, water or sweat conducts heat 25 times faster than air alone. So what's my plan for this little experiment? Well, I've got my bike set up on the indoor trainer and I've got the fan placed there in front of me. First up, I'm going to turn the fan up as high as it goes and I'm going to ride for 10 minutes at 330 watts. Why 330 watts? Well, 350 sounded a little bit too tough, and 330 is a number that I know I can replicate a number of times over without being in too much trouble. So as I progress in through my 10-minute effort, I'm going to have a helpful assistant monitor my body temperature using a thermometer and measuring at the side of my head every couple of minutes. I'm going to record that information and I'm going to record my heart rate, power and the ambient room temperature on my Wahoo head unit. I'm then going to let myself cool down, let my body have a little reset, and then I'm going to conduct the same experiment the second time over, but this time I'm not going to have the fan turned on whatsoever, and that will allow me to measure the difference in heart rate, body temperature, and also whether it affects the ambient room temperature. And then I'll be able to assess how much impact the fan has had on my physical performance. So I guess all that's left for me to do next is get warmed up, calibrate the Wahoo trainer correctly, and start the first test off. Right, see you in a minute. So I'm about 6 or 7 minutes in. Well, it's just coming up to 7 minutes. Tough but manageable, and there's been a few beads of sweat dropping off my nose. Nothing on the mat to show of it yet. I'm definitely warm, that's for sure, even with the fan turned right up. So concentrate, hold the right power for the last few minutes. First effort done. I'm not going to lie, it was slightly hard. I've sweated more than I'd anticipated. Maybe 3 or 4 drops down on the mat underneath, plenty of beads of sweat coming off of me. And yeah, I am a bit sweatier than I anticipated, so slightly apprehensive about what's in store when I do the same effort with no fan whatsoever. So what I'm going to do now is carry on catching my breath, take a breather, sit down, chill out, let my body temperature return back to normal, and then we'll repeat the exact same experiment, all the same variables, the same process, the same methods, keep everything controlled and consistent, and then I'll do my 10-minute effort with no fan whatsoever, and well, then we'll discuss the results afterwards. Right, I'll see you in a minute. I'm going to have a breather. Right, so then first test done. I've cooled down, I've sort of reset myself. I've conducted a similar process of a warm-up, so I'm starting at the same point ready for this experiment. Not sure if I'm looking forward to it yet or not, but anyway, let's get straight to it. 3, 2, 1, boom. 330 watts. Here we go. Right, quick update, 37.4. It feels much tougher. Presumably, it's quite easy to see I'm fairly warm. I think fairly warm could be an understatement. Riding with no fans so far feels much harder. Right, better get my head down. Last few minutes. Oh, here we go. I've lost count how many drops of sweat there's been now. Oh, another 2. Right, oh, 1 second short on that effort, there we go. God, I can literally feel my heart beating in my chest. And it's a little bit gross, to be honest, how sweaty and horrid I am. Very, very clear difference, both in terms of how my heart rate feels and also how your sort of perception of how hard the effort is. Clearly, I'm sweating a lot. It's all over the bike, all over the indoor training mat. Good reason I had a mat down, actually. So I guess all that's left for me to do is upload the ride data onto Komoot and onto my computer so that I can then assess it. I'm gonna go have a shower, freshen up a bit. I'm not sure if you can agree with me that that's appropriate, but we'll pick this back up in the tech set once I'm slightly more fresher and more presentable. See you in a bit. Oh, goodness me. Oh, I'm back and somewhat fresher and less sweaty. So now is the perfect time to run through the results of my experiment. So from the first test where I had the fan running as high as possible, let me give you some of the numbers and stats. We've got an average power of 339 watts, an average heart rate of 144 beats a minute, with a maximum heart rate of 155. My body temperature average was 36 degrees C with a maximum of 36.6. The room temperature was 16 degrees C. Now, in terms of a perceived effort of how hard it felt, I'm going to rate that a 7 out of 10. It was tough, but it was manageable and I could have carried on for a fairly prolonged period of time. Now, moving on to the results of the second part of the test, where I repeated the experiment, but with no fan going whatsoever. Oh my, it was very warm. So the average power from the second test was 328 watts. I mean, it's 1 watt less than the first one. It's effectively the same. It's the tiniest of differences. We've got an average heart rate of 151 beats a minute, so 7 beats a minute higher than when I had the fan running. And then it's a similar case with my maximum heart rate. We've got 162, so again, 7 BPMs more. Body temperature, I've got an average temperature of 36.9 degrees C, which is 0.9 degrees Celsius higher. And then in terms of my maximum temperature, 37.3, 0.7 degrees C higher. Room temperature, 1 degree higher, 17 degrees, although it's a very small difference. But in terms of the perceived effort, riding with no fan at that effort was much, much harder. And I'm gonna rate it a 9 out of 10. I don't really think I had the capacity to ride at that effort for a much longer period of time. It was just incredibly tougher. Even straight away, I could feel my body was straining and my heart rate was elevated. And it was just a bit of a horrid situation to be in. I was covered in sweat, my hands were sweaty, it was all over the bars. It was all just a little bit gross. So what is the takeaway from this experiment? Well, I've already explained that my heart rate was much higher and my body temperature was high. But what does that mean if I was doing indoor training or virtual racing, for example, and riding at my absolute maximal limit? Well, quite simply, if I didn't have a fan running or didn't have a fan that generated enough wind resistance, then I just would have to slow down. My body wouldn't be able to dissipate the heat and therefore it would run the risk of overheating. So I just couldn't sustain the same level of physical output. And if I was racing, it would just mean I'm going slower than I would have done otherwise. If I was just riding easily, maybe it's not a big deal. So there you have it. The results of this experiment do confirm, it's not a surprise, that a fan is an important factor to consider when you're doing indoor training, especially if you're going to be doing virtual racing. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a big thumbs up, and why not let me know in the comments section down below what kind of fan you use for indoor training and whether you really feel it has a big impact on your performance or not. Right, and if you want to see more tech videos like this, remember to subscribe to GCN Tech and hit the bell icon to turn on your notifications so you don't miss a single upload. See ya.